situation, and I just feel as if, and then he started talking about like humanity as a whole, these types of situations happen, but first of all, someone else is talking and I can't really hear.
Can someone mute? So here we go, guys. We have a fun one. Doris just announced at the last moment a change of venue. So what should we do?
What's the change of venue?
I mean, he's holding himself as king again, and we as faithful servants have to follow him, I think.
I say stay here.
Well, so it's a different Zoom room? Is that it?
That's it. Different room Zoom.
And then so there's 20 people in this Zoom room. Is anybody else in the other one?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's weird.
So at the last possible moment, he changes venue. This was the venue that was used earlier this week on Wednesday. And this is the venue that everyone's used to, and this is the venue I published. I don't understand why this has to be a power struggle.
That part makes absolutely no sense. So I say we just proceed with outlining what this meeting was supposed to be about, and we just continue moving forward. And where the places where Door's supposed to fill in, they'll be blatant that, it's a power struggle, but to us, it's still progressive.
Okay. Let's use the raise hand feature here. Who votes to stay here?
What do you mean raised hand?
That's it.
Jim, I don't even know if that's
how many. Hang on a second. I'm just going to ask Door.
Yeah, hello guys. I think we have to move over to the other room.
Why is that?
Because everybody is there, Door, and so we want to talk to Door. He doesn't want to come in this room, so we can move over.
But the thing is, if that room has technical constraints, like only a certain number of people, then I don't want to lose all the people here.
It's a Zoom room, so
yeah. But Jim.
No, not necessarily. It depends on the account.
Yeah, is it paid for? That's my question, because there's 13 people in that room. And I believe that the free version of Zoom, if that account is not paid for, you can only have 25 people in the room.
Yeah, so that would be too many. Additionally, that means that there's someone else who can control the muting feature, and the person who owns the editing of the video is over there. So,
but yeah, okay, but we can also make a copy of this. We can record it. I mean, you can do that with QuickTime, and then you have a screen recording. So
there are concerns about censorship on the other channel, so I think we should stay here.
I don't, because there's not a lot of opportunities to talk, and when it goes wrong, then you still can see that you go.
Christian can video and still stream it, correct?
Oh yeah, dude, we're streaming right now. So look, my main point is, number one, does the room have enough people? Is the capacity enough? That's number one. Number two, you guys will have to work out who has admin in that room, because I won't have admin. But I don't think I have demonstrated any sort of authoritarian.
No, I agree with you, Christian.
Abuse of power or anything like that. So, but it's up to you guys. I don't really care. Either way, I can stream what's coming through my, just like I've been doing for 8 months now. But again, now we're losing time, so we really do
I
need to
agree.
make a
We're
decision.
losing time. I have only until 8, so we've lost 8 minutes.
I think the most important people have to go over in the other Zoom, and then you see how it's get filled up.
He says he has the premium Zoom plan.
Okay, and that means there should be enough room for everyone in the chat.
Okay. Can someone else agree to quick time the process so there are multiple copies?
I will do that, yeah.
Okay.
And
great.
more people can do it.
Yeah. Can we have one more person?
Well, Christian's recording.
Yeah, well, I'm recording, so when I jump over, like everything will still be going.
Okay, awesome. Then I'm happy to jump over.
All right.
I think this is the most ridiculously childish thing.
Yeah, but let's move over. We're not kids.
I agree.
It's snowing so beautifully here. It's just great.
Show us.
I think we broke the record of having most people in a scenario hangout.
Yeah, I think all people move over, yeah.
I'm not quite sure if you can actually see the snow, but it's snowing, trust me.
But we see it has snowed, not the actual snow.
Yeah, it's actually snowing pretty heavily right now. I mean, it's just gray. You can't see it really from the video, but yeah, it's awesome.
Is there a reason you changed the room the last minute, Dora? The other room was announced days ago.
The other room represents another unilateral action by Greg hosting a scenario meeting on Christian's channel. Christian is not a scenario employee. Furthermore, last time he actually kicked one of Scenario's employees while we were discussing.
So are there going to be any standards set in advance for people cutting people off? So if I just were to cut everybody off, would I get kicked out of this room?
As long as you communicate in good faith, there's no reason to be kicked.
Okay, even if that intervenes on someone else's communications?
If you intervene on someone's communications and it's clear that your aim is to disrupt, then you're not communicating in good faith.
And
so I think we should really just like set, stand for having a respectful meeting. Wait for people to finish their thoughts, to finish their talk. Hopefully nobody would go on a 20-minute rant, and everything would be just respectful.
Yeah, all right, it's clear that we want to hear most from Dor, Greg, and Andy. So I guess we let you guys kick it off. Also Ed too. Ed's been making some great points.
Let me ask one question, Dora. Is there any possibility of splitting the funds, creating a board, and having Greg continue in scenario?
If Greg stays in scenario, then what are we splitting?
Splitting the funds between rchain and the social platform.
The discussion here isn't about rchain or the social platform. It's about Scenario's desire to produce working code that can underlie applications that people can use as soon as possible. This is the duty that we have. This is the reason why we took investor funds, and that's what we're going to deliver.
Well, you know, a lot of people disagree with that. A lot of people think the investor funds were for rchain. Okay, and since it's an undecidable question and there's no right answer, I suggest dividing the funds between the two.
Also, what constitutes as soon as possible, and do you have a benchmark for any other delivery?
Can I suggest that we not get bogged down? The end of the conversation last Wednesday was that I would come back with a counter proposal. That's what Andy suggested. That's what I've done. I had the counter proposal reviewed by several community members. Every community member all agreed that it was too lean, and that showed even more clearly that Dora's initial proposal was absurd. So that's where we are. That's what was asked by the process. The community all heard it. It's on recorded video. And that's what we've done. So now it is time to take the next steps. So the proposal is on the table, and that's what we need to hear about. If that's not what we're here to talk about, then please state upfront, because that's what we all agreed, and that was clear. And so if that's not what we're here to talk about, I guess the meeting's over.
No, I am happy to continue negotiating. I do want to start with an apology, though, to everyone who's listening, to the community at large. We did not intend to have this blow up in public. We understand how this leads to frustration and to fear about the market and generally about Scenario's proposal. And I want to make it clear and known that the chat on Thursday was a unilateral action by Greg. He went to use a third party to start his hangout. And it was, as you saw, for the first 30 minutes for the sole purpose of trying to pressure me through your help, through the community's help, to step down as CEO of the company. He didn't even invite me to this hangout, actually. We just joined to see what was going on. So none of us in the Scenario team are interested in this. We were happy to continue the negotiations offline and reach the result that we just come to you with. But we did not choose this path. We did not choose to blow it all up in public or do our laundry on live TV, so to speak. So since we are here, though, and this process has started, I just want to say that I want to commit in my name and in everyone's name on the team that we're going to have a calm discussion, calm and respectful discussion. So, continuing from the last discussion, Andy, do you want to give your impressions?
Well, first, I guess it is my duty to introduce my bias, right? So I guess every person on this call, including Dora and Greg, would have at least to some extent biased opinion, and that must include myself, right? I wouldn't be here had I had no interest in what's happening. And so I'm going to disclose my bias and see if it aligns with yours. You may want to agree or disagree with me. So as I introduced myself in the previous call, I am largest equity and AMP holder outside of Greg and Dor. And so my interest, while neither my employment nor my financial sort of well-being depend on Scenario, Scenario doing well as a project and as a company benefits me. So if you are in a similar position, meaning you have a significant amount of AMPs or equity, but your employment does not depend on Scenario and its actions, you're very likely to have an alignment with my interests. Having said that, based on the announcement that was made by the Scenario team yesterday, the blog post, which I hope you have seen, it seems that Dor and every single member on the Scenario team is currently on one side, and Greg's proposal is on the other, along with its supporters. But I want to make sure that, based on my understanding, it's Greg and his supporters, and Dor and the core Scenario team on the other.
So I'm going to have to interrupt you there. The core Scenario team constitution has changed as a result of working with Dor, and everyone knows that. Ed and Navneet announced their departure 2 weeks ago as a result of working with Dor. Ian removed himself from core, and many of the people who were on core have left core very recently as a result of working with Dor. So what constitutes the core team is effectively a new team that was not in the public eye at the time of the crowd sale. So to state these as if they were somehow the core team that was advertised to the investors who put money in is extremely concerning to me. To the point,
I was there for the crowd sale and before.
To consider, to the point of considering it disingenuous.
Andy, can I just interject there? I just want to state in public that I left the core team not because of my work with Dor, and I know this being a fact also for Eric. We both had problems with Greg and how we could not work with Greg. So just want that to state there.
That's factually incorrect. Eric has stated in writing that he did not leave just because of me. So please, let's stick to factually correct statement.
So at least,
the factually correct statement at the moment is that no changes to the core team have been made since the beginning of negotiations. So whatever the core team was, let's say, prior to the beginning of the process, it remains. And
but the fact of the changes of the core team is exactly what has brought this to the public.
I accept that. Yes, that statement by Greg is true. The core team has changed. However, I think I don't have the exact timelines as to how long each member on the core team has been there, but I feel it will be right to let Dor or anyone else on the team that has this knowledge to respond as to how much time the members of the core team were there, given the fact that you mentioned that they are basically new people and many people who have been there for longer periods of time have left. If that's okay, I would like at least
actually, what I want to observe, it is now 8:53. We wasted over 10 minutes with the last minute venue change. And
okay.
now we're not on substantive issues in response to the counter proposal. So I want to see substantive response to the counter proposal. And if there isn't going to be that, please just state that up front, and everyone can have a good Sunday morning.
It is important to mention, though, that everyone on the current team supports this position, which is not yours. That's the core message. And the fact that one person on the team was fired and another left, I think the rest of the team shares a different impression for why he left specifically, because he could not get his application working on the tech stack that you bought is immaterial. We have 12 people on the team. 12 people on the team, and none of them support your position.
First of all, that's a gross overstatement, and that is not backed up by written statements from team members. Moreover, you have people who are on your payroll who have expressed to me quite clearly that they are concerned about their payroll status if they have anything else, if they have any other stated position. So again, let us please return to the substantive issues. The substantive issues are, what is the response to the negotiated proposal? Are you willing to negotiate this on the basis of this proposal, or do we need to go to the non-negotiated options? It's that simple. That's the high order bit here. There's three options. Are we working on option 1, option 2, or option 3?
Dor, I believe you'll have to make that statement. I could merely make the introduction as to the state of things of the scenario and the state of the proposals.
Okay. So the proposal that Greg submitted, as it is now, requires a total of $2.1 billion from Scenario, which is approximately 70% of all the funds that we hold. So needless to say, this would completely cripple Scenario as it stands. And for a project that Greg said himself would require 10 million to function. And even with those 10 million, 2 years to even start materializing. So at the moment, I want to make it clear that even if we do not find a path forward in which the new entity that Greg wants to start gets funded, Scenario with the funding that it has doesn't require Greg. We have different options, and we are going to be very forthcoming about them in the coming days.
So now, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you here.
Here's one thing that is very meaningful to talk about before continuing. It's the fact that you said that if Scenario gives you these funds, then you have the ability to bring on the extra funds required up to the 10 million from an investor. And so this isn't something that we can just take on through a verbal claim. So I'm asking that to clarify that statement and to help us evaluate the proposal properly, you bring us a letter of intent from this investor, or even, just get him on the phone with me so that I can hear him say that what's keeping him from investing in an rchain entity led by you is Scenario's lack of investment in your new startup.
Okay, so first of all, the statements here are misleading and disingenuous. Let's go through them one step at a time. Number one, what I have said is that we will be having lots of interim deliverables, and you can see all of the interim deliverables as documented in the proposal as a part of an iterative development process, which I have been following from the very beginning. So to claim that there has been anything other than an iterative development process with lots of proofs of concept and milestones and touch points is factually incorrect. Number two, what's incorrect, Dor, is that the proposal online that everyone can see doesn't have 2 years before there are deliverables. There are deliverables, and people can be engaging those deliverables as interim milestones along the way. Number two,
I would like a clarification on that, if possible. But based on the proposal you have submitted and what was said in recent meetings, 2.1 million do not constitute even a fraction of what is required to deliver the rchain. the delivery of the rchain hinges upon the additional 8 to 7 million in funding that is to be received to make it a reality.
So let's be clear. I want to be clear and set this inside the industrial context. So let me give people points of information. There was a version of the Java virtual machine that was available for many people to play with within a year of the time that it was described and announced. Was that thing production ready? No, it wasn't. How long did it take to get to something that was production ready? About a decade. The knockoff, i.e. .NET, which was basically a clean room re-implementation of something that was already done. How long did that take to get to production ready? That was about 8 years, 7 to 8 years. Scenario cannot be holding that they are going to be to market with anything that is production ready in any time frame close to that. It's been posted by many community members who have actually done the due diligence and have actually done the work, that all of the platforms from Ethereum to Lisk to the Bitcoin platform is not actually production ready. Dor was with me when we sat through all of the pain points, both in the first crowd sale and the second crowd sale, just using the Bitcoin blockchain network. It's not production ready.
So even if I find everything acceptable, again, aren't you setting up yourself and Scenario for failure by accepting 2.1 million while not securing the additional investment?
No, that's not how this works. And you know that that's not how this works, Andy. It works by hitting milestones and getting more investment. In this case, we have a much, much better option because as Dor can tell you, he sat with Ed and I on the call, not once, but twice with the investor. And in the second time, I confirmed with Dor sitting in on the phone, not in the room, but on the phone, that this investor.
Are you talking about David Otto?
I confirmed with Dor on the phone with the investor that.
Are you talking about a call with David Otto? That's the investor that I was on with, just making sure we're talking about the same person.
I am going to leave names out of this for now and confirm with you privately these kinds of things because that's important for negotiations at this point.
I think the negotiation could have been private in the first place. I don't know why we are meeting some things should be transparent and others should not. It doesn't make any sense.
Because until there is some legal issues nailed down here with respect to the governance structure, this is very, very much in question.
I don't get it. What's in question?
Okay, fine. I will be happy to say that Dor was on a call with David Otto, in which David Otto confirmed, this is the second or third call that Dor was on with David Otto, in which David Otto confirmed at the end of the call, after going through various legal positions with us, that Otto Capital was still quite interested in investing at the level that I was talking about. At this point,
they're interested, but they're not committed, as you described.
Because they cannot be committed given the current broken status of the governance of Scenario.
But you're talking about setting up your own new entity governed solely by you.
No, that's not governed solely by me, and that is such a misnomer. And that's a lawyerly trick, and I need you to stop doing it. You know that a co-op is not governed solely by me. Okay, that's very standard. It's a very standard debate tactic, and I need you to stop doing it.
A company set up according to your own wishes for how it's going to be governed.
No, it's set up according. It's set up according.
Completely unrelated to Scenario. Therefore, David would not have any issues with government.
Actually, that's incorrect. And as you know, as was mentioned on the phone, not once but multiple times, the investment structure we were talking about had an investment into Scenario and LivelyGig and rchain through those two investments.
So your intention now is to get David Otto to invest in all of these three entities, Scenario, LivelyGig, and a new rchain that's a cooperative?
I don't understand why you were asking this question since you were on the call and on the debriefing calls afterwards.
Because I've been on hundreds of calls with investors throughout the last 2 years, and only about 5% of them, maybe less, end up investing. And so when someone tells me, this is really cool, I'm really interested, that's very far away from investing. Suddenly when you talk about such levels of $10 million.
Having been through the investment process and having gotten many times more investment than Scenario has ever landed, personally, myself, I understand the process, Door. Okay, and this, and having, and I can evaluate this particular opportunity as having many more legs than the hundreds of calls that you made. That's why I'm focused on it. Now, the important thing here is to go back to Andy's points. So there were 3 issues here. One has to do with whether or not we have to have all of the investments secured up front. Scenario will not have all the investments secured up front to succeed. Scenario can't actually succeed without A, production-ready code, which it will not have. It can't have that, and the reason it can't have that is because there is no.
Matthew, do you think
I think it's proper that you talk for rchain and what's going to be working for rchain.
No, we can talk about this. We can talk about this absolutely because there is no platform.
I think we can address
no platform out there that is production ready. So in order to get to production ready code, it's going to take in order to get to production ready code, it's going to take a lot longer. And that's, even Ethereum understands this. There's no one who is so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed that they are thinking that the current platforms out there are production ready. So we make a distinction between deliverables and milestones and production ready. Production ready happens in the 5 to 10 year time frame. And anyone who is telling you different is blowing smoke.
Okay. So
now,
I think the issue is the definition of production ready. And, it's like they say every program has bugs. But what Greg is talking about in production ready is to operate in a totally trustless environment. But that's not the kind of network we're building. We're building a trust network. And we can work with code that is not up to the standard of mathematical perfection that Greg is demanding of the system.
Wait a minute, Jim. No, I'm talking about the difference between JVM 10 years on and JVM now. There's very, very little done in the way of formal verification of the JVM as it currently exists. The only formal verification of the JVM that I know about is all for tiny core feather versions of Java. I'm talking about the realities of day-to-day programming. Java is not deployed in a trustless environment. Java applications are deployed in enterprise situations and high-touch situations, and that is almost always the way it happens. So what I'm talking about is the real-life, day-to-day difference between Java as it was released when it was roughly the equivalent of Ethereum VM 2.0, and Java as it exists today. That's the difference. I'm not talking about mathematical certainty at this point. I'm just talking about the reality, brass tacks reality of software development that any engineer worth their salt is going to talk to you about. Okay? So the Bitcoin blockchain is not production ready, not by the standards of production ready that we hold the JVM to be. What we're talking about here is just brass tacks. And I'm setting the context so we can understand how investment works. We're not.
What's the point?
It costs a lot more than $10 million, by the way, to get the JVM to that point.
So what just let me get into a room, close the door, and sit in there, and I'll just do my thing until I'm ready, and then I'll show you what I'm with.
Absolutely not. That's not what's in the proposal. If you've read it, if you've been listening to me for the last 3 months that we've been talking to each other, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I have been saying repeatedly over and over and is documented on the Scenario community hangouts and with the proof of concepts and the alpha code is iterative development. Go look at the proposal. You will see milestones.
So that's what I don't understand, because in the call, we had the four of us, you, Andy, Dor, and me, when we were negotiating the original scenario proposal. We were saying, okay, Greg, we understand you want out. We understand you want to work on your own projects. We understand you need investment to do that. We are giving you the respect of doing that. Please show some kind of milestone, and we're going to invest in an incremental way according to the outcomes of your actual deliverables. And you were saying there, wait, you're saying over there, well, that's impossible. You know, I need, it's not something that can be broken down into those phases. You need much more.
Yaniv, can we please stick to what was recorded in public? First of all, I have not said that I want out. What I have said very clearly, and is written down in the document, if you have read the proposal and considered the proposal, is that I want to fix the governance structure, and I want there to be an rchain cooperative which protects the commons information. Okay, so the blockchain technology that Scenario promised to investors is commons technology that can be utilized for Scenario, for Lively Gig, for dating services, and many other kinds of applications. And therefore, it should not be, oh, all this IP belongs to Scenario. Bad idea, bad plan. That just in the same way that Ethereum made a commitment to have a nonprofit foundation protecting the commons, Scenario, at least initially, made a commitment and made it quite public that it would have a nonprofit around the commons so that people would not be worried about exactly these kinds of considerations, and so there would be a healthy and vibrant application market. This was, in fact, returning back finally to Andy's points, also what was in the discussion with the investors, and they were quite attracted to this idea because a healthy commons creates a healthy application market. And Dor was well apprised of this conversation because we had it not only for hours with the investor, but hours afterwards. And it's not something that like hundreds of calls would be forgotten. This was
I take issue with this
part of strategy.
I take extreme issue with this statement. You're saying that we promised investors to focus on rchain. And while it's true that rchain was part of the proposal, what we promised them more than anything else was to release centralized social network with components of the attention economy. And more so, we promised that we already have available a platform for developing fully decentralized applications. Now, what you're saying is not only did investors only invest for rchain, I'm not even able to deliver a production-ready rchain in who knows how many years and how many tens of dollars. So I want to reiterate, Scenario's position is that we're going to use any available technology. We have many options available in the space, and we're going to deliver something that people find useful within a reasonable time frame, within the time that the resources that we've collected allow. We're not depending on future perfect systems to be created. This isn't what we promised. This isn't what people came to us for.
You've made your point out, Dor.
Very specific promises about both what we have and what we are going to deliver. And we are fully capable of delivering it even without rchain and even without you as CTO.
Let's be clear. It's 9:12. We need to keep the debate tactics to a minimum so we don't keep hashing over information. I have never said that there won't be deliverables. I have said that there will be deliverables all along the way that people can engage and find useful. In the same way, if I may please continue my comments. Absolutely. If people are willing to stand up nodes by hand instead of in an automated fashion, they can use Special K to do decentralized applications. The only thing that is not here is the automated way of wiring up nodes together. If they're willing to do them by hand, we can demonstrate that in a matter of minutes. So that is not the issue here. All I have said is that there is a long and an important delta between what people find useful and production ready. And if we are going to push millions of dollars through the system, we have to be able to alert people to the delta between useful, worthy of further investment, a proof of concept. Those are all important parts of an iterative software development, but that is not production ready. And people should not be pushing millions of dollars worth of stuff as they are with, for example, the DAO through these kinds of systems. That's the requirement, that we make sure that they're aware of this delta, and we make sure that they are sober, that they're getting into a much longer term vision. That's the only thing that I've been trying to do. And in order to make that goal, in order to go the long distance, there needs to be a governance structure that will allow us to go that kind of distance with respect to blockchain.
But even without the governance structure, from a purely project survival and delivery and financing perspective, what we're currently discussing is the allocation of funds towards a multi-year project, knowing very well that the funds allocated by scenario constitute a mere fraction of what would be required to deliver the project to the world. And
the same is true, and the same is true of any other approach, because you're going to have to take any one of the platforms that you might use as a component and get it to production ready. Screw rchain.
Disagreement here, right? So
well, actually,
disagreement.
So
position and yours.
Okay, so it turns out that there are lots of community members who have gone and done and verified this independently. One of the community members simply posted the results. If we bring Rick Dudley on from Eris Industries, he'll confirm the same thing. Anyone who is running the actual platforms on a day-to-day basis, who plays with them, knows they're not production ready, and the total amount of effort to get them to production ready for the kinds of systems that we're contemplating is a multi-year effort, 5 to 10 years at a minimum. I don't care which platform you take. What I'm saying to you is, if we take the approach that I have been outlining, then you can streamline that process. Why? Because you don't pick up the technical debt, because you have algorithms that have been tested and formally verified, and because we have a long track record of them being delivered on. So, for example, the VM, the team who was in charge of evaluating the VM options was unanimously selected by the current members of the core scenario team. And that VM, by the way, has been utilized in production for an ATM network management system, for a data cleaning application for Belcore, for a data provisioning system for Ameritech, for a data integration system for Eastman Chemical. So these are all things that are already on the map, and I can give you demos right now.
Could I ask you a question, Greg? Are you characterizing my involvement in those discussions as my sort of stamp of approval on thinking that the current VM is acceptable technology?
All I said was what actually happened. We had multiple meetings discussing which VM should be selected as the basis for the target of the compile chain.
Well, so two things.
Everyone in those meetings ultimately who decided that they were qualified to vote made one choice.
Can we hear Can we hear Henry's comments?
Well, I was a party to the conversations that I think Greg is talking about, and first of all, I mean, he says everyone who is qualified, and I feel like that's sort of an interesting sort of technicality that he's using in that context.
No, but Henry, just to be clear, I said everyone who felt themselves to be qualified. So, for example, Navneet recused himself.
Right.
Julia recused herself. I would have loved to have Julia's input and Navneet's input, but they self-selected out of the process.
So essentially that leaves, I believe, you, me, and Gary as the people talking about it.
No, there was also Ed, but that's okay.
And did Ed feel himself to be somebody who was qualified? I mean, he's here. Maybe, Ed, would you like to sort of jump in and say whether or not you participated in that conversation and felt comfortable with that?
Hey, Henry. Hey, everyone. I actually don't remember that conversation, but I'm certainly not qualified for a VM choice.
Right. And
specifically, I thought, I don't know that I stated it, but I thought to switch VMs was actually an expansion of scope, and I was concerned about it, but we didn't talk in detail that I remember being involved in.
So the people a party to that conversation then would leave, that Greg is describing, would leave Gary, myself, and Greg in that conversation. And
that's correct.
Two things. One is that while I enjoy talking about those kind of things, I don't feel myself to be somebody qualified to make hard decisions about those kind of things. I've often had to sort of defer to Greg, but the sense in which I deferred to Greg is one in which, you know, I'm not a good person to be considered a judge of these things, you know, and so while I can qualify or at least disclaim myself to some degree, at the same time too, the VM that Greg is currently talking about using, I have my sincere doubts that it is actually a smart choice for moving forward in the same way that we've suffered with a code base that is about, what, 8-10 years old in terms of how long, when you started Special K, is that correct? About 2013, when was it, 2008 you said?
2009.
2009. So, I mean, one of the things that we've struggled against is the fact that there's a phenomenon in development called bit rot, which I think some of you are familiar with, where code, when left to its own devices, unused for the span of several years, often it becomes unusable or has problems when you try to sort of start using it again years later. And so if you look at the GitHub history, for example, of scenario, you'll see that there is essentially like a 2-year span between the time that Greg stopped work on it when it was splicious and when work resumed for scenario. So Greg is attempting to do a demonstration right now that in fact the VM is working. This isn't the whole story. So I was actually the person who got the VM working the other night. I was curious about the sort of things that he was saying about it, and so I put in some time to sort of to do my best to see if it could get it running. And certainly in the way that Greg is demonstrating here, the VM is running. However, it's also a very old code base. It hasn't been worked on since 1993. It's designed for 32-bit systems, and I'm sure, as everybody knows here, we're now in an era of 64-bit systems. So it demands that it be compiled as in a sort of a legacy mode of current C compilers. In addition to that, the work that will be required to make that a 64-bit VM is actually pretty significant. There was a lot of effort taken in the 90s to make this code very efficient on what were then contemporary platforms by byte aligning data structures. And at the time too, they used a lot of C macros, which are a very, for anybody who's familiar with C macros, while they're very powerful, they're also very hard to use correctly. And while the current implementation is correct, essentially, in my understanding for those platforms, to bring this code up to a 64-bit platform would require a significant amount of re-engineering in order for byte aligning those data structures properly. So the Rosette VM as it stands also doesn't compile on Linux. So yeah, Greg is showing it to you on OS X, but no sort of, what are considered even, development platforms can only be compiled on OS X. I mean, it's a bare minimum that things like this are able to be compiled on Linux. Now, I'm not saying it can't be compiled on Linux, but at the same time that I attempted to get it compiling on OS X and was successful, I also sunk in about 4 hours of time trying to get it to compile on several different Linux distributions under a variety of configurations. And the trouble that I had was that while I was able to get it to compile, it actually has runtime errors, which are actually very hard to debug because of the age of the software. I mean, Greg may know more about how one would go about debugging those kinds of scenarios with the Rosette VM, but in fact, it's very, very challenging work, in my opinion, to have to go back and to debug a runtime error in this system.
So again, so thank you very much for that, Henry. So and I appreciate your analysis. I think that's a useful analysis. Again, what we have been talking about, and Henry knows this, was a clean room reimplementation on the Scala JVM. And I think
well, the other day, Greg suggested that in fact he didn't want to do a clean room reimplementation.
Actually, let's be careful. I said to you in a joking manner that would be something that to think about. But what is important is
it didn't sound like a joke at the time. You said to me, and I quote, that you were concerned that if we re-implemented it on the JVM, there would be serious performance problems.
No, what I was talking about was the use of extra memory, and you know that. And what I was talking about was all of the.
No, I don't know that. No, you're putting words in my mouth here.
Okay,
I don't know that. We had a conversation. You were very circumspect and clear about the fact that you were concerned that if we rewrote the entire Rosette VM in Scala, that it would have performance problems. And you specifically cited the fact that this VM had been highly tuned as a result of those byte alignment properties that had been written into the code base.
No, I didn't say it would have performance problems. What I said was that the performance would be slower than a bare metal implementation as we see.
Okay. That's what I mean when I say performance problems.
That's not the same as, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. And if you compare it to the existing Java-based implementations of the EVM, you will find that the dispatch is just fine. The bytecode dispatch.
Well, this is a new conversation we're having now. But I mean, there is no Java or Scala reimplementation of this code base at this point in time.
But the nice thing is that we're not starting from scratch. We don't have to design a VM. The VM is ready, and you can prove that it works. You can see that you can see right now that it works. You can see that the most important.
If you have an OS X machine, and
guys,
you can see. So what? Yeah, I agree with you. We should not dive too far. The important.
Yeah, that's very technical, and there's like 43 people here, most of which are investors and people who are not tech savvy. So could we get back to what we're here for? There's a lot of people.
Right. So I agree, and all I have said is that we can get to market faster by utilizing technology that has been proven in production. That technology would have to be updated and refreshed, but it's much better than starting.
Well, part of the relevance of this,
better than starting de novo.
One of the things that really concerns me is that was essentially the way that the approach that was taken with Scenario was that rather than starting fresh with Scenario's social network, it was that you brought your existing code base in, and we attempted to then use that to bootstrap Scenario. And I think, as everybody can understand, we do not have a working distributed social network at this moment in time, partially because we've been battling the concerns of dealing with a legacy code base. And the same will be true if you're using the Rosette VM.
Actually, no, that won't be true. The point is you use the Rosette VM.
You'll be starting down the same path.
Actually, no, come on, now that is completely disingenuous, and you know it.
I don't think it's disingenuous, Greg.
To utilize a VM that is running as the basis for the VM, a clean room VM implementation, is not the same as starting down a code path where we have two.
It is if you're talking about
deliverables. If I may finish sentences, it's kind of important to be able to finish sentences. The special K code base has dependencies on libraries inside Scala that were supported by the Scala team that are buggy and don't deliver. And that is the principal reason why I wanted to move off. It is possible to rewrite those. It is possible to clean those up. but I believe that is more cost effective since there has to be a VM produced to execute smart contracts. That's a given. You've got to have a VM to execute the smart contracts. And you're going to need smart contracts to implement the attention economy.
You have shorter sentences for not interrupting you in the middle of a sentence. Just make your point.
I am making the point. There has to be a VM to execute the smart contracts. The attention economy requires smart contracts. Even Andy has agreed that essentially posts become contracts. And he's agreed on the scenario hangouts that are publicly recorded and put out. So that much is not in contest. So there must be a VM. Which VM do you pick? So do we pick a VM that supports concurrency so this can scale, or do we pick one that doesn't? So far, the only one that has been proposed are the VMs that I have been proposing, namely the row VM and then mapping the row VM onto the Rosette VM. The Rosette VM as a design is quite solid, and the Rosette VM as an implementation was solid enough to support an ATM network management system, a provisioning system for telecoms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that gets us faster to market, and that's the discussion.
So I'm not going to take issue with anything you just said, but I do want to point out that one of the struggles that we're facing right now is that Special K and the scenario social platform was meant to be held up as an interim sort of deliverable, even if it wasn't the final deliverable, even if I'm not going to sit here and argue that point. But at the very least, one of the big issues that we're having right now is that the existing code base was supposed to be an interim deliverable. Now, in the current conception of the brand new stack, in order for part of the negotiation that's going on is that that Dor is uncomfortable with the idea that he is going to be playing only a partial role in financing this platform, and that there's the question of deliverables is even more sort of sketchy in that context. Now, Greg, you've come back and you've said, no, we will have deliverables on that time scale. But it strikes me that one of the things that's being described here is that at least in the interim period, before you've done a clean room re-implementation of this VM, which is probably a fairly substantial project, that you would probably, one of those deliverables would probably be being based on this existing technology, would it not? I mean, is that part of the plan that you're going to?
No, it would not. No, it would not. So let's go through this very, very carefully. And this was done. All I did was to go back to the scenario architecture document that we showed to investors and promoted to investors, and simply boiled it down to the important bits. So if you're going to build a smart contracting language, essentially a full general purpose programming language that is blockchain aware, and you're going to have a VM that executes it, that you store as state on the blockchain. This, by the way, is the part of the rchain piece that is effectively an Ethereum 3.0, right? That piece is necessary in order to do the attention economy. So if you're going to do that, you have to rein in the features here. You can't make this general purpose programming language be general purpose for graphics and for scientific computation and yada, yada, yada. It has to be focused by an application. So what's the application? As I have said over and over and over again, both to Dor, internally in scenario and outside, the application is the attention economy. So this is the thing that's driving that. And I even had Jack beginning to write these contracts. So
I guess before we go too far, I'm curious to hear what you have to say here, but my question was probably a little simpler than I framed it, and maybe it's worth reiterating just so we can get a simpler answer to it. Is it or is it not your plan to use the Rosette VM in its current form, as a part of the platform? Or are you planning to start fresh with a clean room reimplementation?
So if you mean by use the existing C++ code base as part of the deliverable, no, I am not planning on doing that. The plan is to compile, to have a bytecode compiler that goes, that exists inside the Scala implement, that is re-implemented in Scala and goes against the JVM. That's been the plan, and that's the plan that we talked about.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, we did have, like I said, we did have a conversation where it sounded like you weren't going in that direction. That's not
the direction that, it's not a good idea. I am sorely tempted. Trust me, I am sorely tempted by the speed of going to the metal.
You would be making the same mistake, I think, doing that. I just think that the re-architecting is the real reason, the thing that keeps me from that temptation is social, not technical. The clean room reimplementation allows other developers to get involved. Yeah, well, I'm glad it's something, even if it's not technical, because it should be technical. You should be thinking about what it takes to bring a 25-year-old C++ code base back into the modern day. That is a pretty big engineering problem.
Actually, not if you've done this before.
Well, certainly you could hire a C++ expert, but you're going to be paying them even more than you're going to be paying your Scala experts.
Oh, no, not even close. But I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah, let's move on. I mean,
the important point is that I have laid out a path of technology that has been proven in industry that has lots of interim deliverables to get there. And on top of that, that path is there along with all the other pieces of the proposal in order to get us to the level of funding that will take us to what I am calling production ready. Now, Door,
you can approve it for yourself. You're saying I have demonstrated something, proven, whatever. You have people working with you who don't seem to be too impressed with that.
No. I think I'm sorry, but it's a matter of public record that there was an ATM network management system that was deployed within Sumitomo Bank, built using this technology. I'm sorry, but you don't get to rewrite history. It's a matter of public record that BizTalk was a product delivered inside Microsoft using the same approach to smart contracting technology, and that was in fact the first internet scale smart contracting technology. All of this is built upon the same sets of designs. So if you're going to talk about anybody who has the ability to a proven track record to deliver and has done this repeatedly, not once, but multiple times at industrial scale, there's one person in this room.
Not in this project.
Okay. So obviously the questions that I brought up here stem from the fact that some of the answers to these questions aren't really apparent to me, a technical person looking at the current counter proposal as it stands. Now, I think in a circumstance where trust is really broken, it kind of behooves you, Greg, to be trying to flesh out as much of that important detail as you can in some senses, because those are the kind of things that go into a more solid analysis of the things that you're saying and the claims that you're making about the sort of path forward with the actual stuff. I'm happy to, I totally am happy to like accept all of the sort of engineering track record of the Rosette project and BizTalk and all of those other things. And that's obviously that's an important factor when many people come to the table when considering this stuff. But part of the question at hand too here is, given the sort of current scope of the project and the current technologies that we plan to enlist in that effort, it sort of might be more important that more detail is fleshed out about the road forward, because that gives everybody more information and a better basis to sort of move forward with these kind of negotiations.
Okay, but the reality is that we can't drag this on forever. We are having this enlightening discussion right now.
A lot of the time pressure has come from the fact that when this was a kind of private process, now we've brought this out into the community and it's upset a lot of things.
No. The time
I haven't heard any arguments for any alternative VM, and it sounds like it's a good model. And in blockchain 1, we can start prototyping applications.
Exactly. So the important thing here is that I've been doing the education process for people inside the scenario team for quite some time. You and Gary, I think, have been apprised for quite some time. and to the best of my knowledge, came to the project quite enchanted with the approach that has been laid out.
Well, I mean, I've always been as you may know from our personal communications, I've always been really intrigued and interested in your work, Greg. But my own skill set has definitely been better suited.
Whoever's drawing,
you're not letting Henry speak. We're letting you.
Whoever's drawing on the screen.
Why can you talk
they
forever?
stop? Thank you. I just want people whoever's drawing on the screen to stop drawing on the screen.
Let Henry speak as well.
I want Henry to speak.
Could you please stop screen sharing now?
I mean, let's try to ratchet down the sort of levels of antagonism here, guys. This isn't. I don't think that we're sort of locked in a deathly battle. The point is that I think we're trying to all in good faith move forward together here. And part of the things that I'm saying is that my hope is that as part of these discussions moving forward, we can balance the discussion about funds with some of the questions about the technical details, because I think those are actually pretty important.
I agree.
We are a developer-driven project, and despite our best desire to have high-level conversations about this, even the things that Greg has said here today, confirming his desire to re-implement, in Scala, the Rosette VM, that is kind of a sort of a slightly different thing than even I last heard, when I talked to Greg about this. So obviously the facts on the ground are kind of changing in the course of this discussion. And those are things that in some senses need to have a place in these discussions, in my opinion.
Look, Henry, I'm very, very happy to have lots and lots of detailed discussions, and I encourage it. But I really, really think it's important that if I have a conversation with you in which I say I am tempted to go a particular path, but I don't formally put it on paper or argue to the team that I would do that, you can't say that was a fact on the ground that I was taking a different path.
That's fair enough. But obviously it was a development on the ground. It was a statement. However you want to construe that, whether or not I use the word fact. The point is that obviously these are evolving discussions, and they're evolving discussions surrounding a technical platform. Now, it's quite possible as these discussions continue that we may want to bring other people's technical expertise into the fray to discuss some of these things too. And it would behoove us, if we were doing that, to be able to at least clarify on some of these points, that we don't just put lines on a document that have names. We talk about specifics.
I agree.
In a situation where there has been trust eroded between parties, the more kind of granularity we can bring to the discussion may actually help move things forward.
I absolutely believe in granularity and nuance, and not make black and white statements like nothing works. That gets us nowhere. I think
it's not enough to just say these are the deliverables that we have so far, because that's not the full story. RoCamel isn't the full story. Rosette isn't the full story. Scenario isn't the full story. But with the things that you are enlisting when you talk to people in the community about what is the proof isn't sufficient. There's more detail necessary in these conversations.
I agree that there's more detail necessary, but what's important is for people to understand that there are deliverables right now that they can go and engage and make judgments for themselves. They can verify for themselves. Right.
The people I'm curious, because I don't know to what extent. I've seen a lot of people say that only tech savvy people can sort of attempt to approach these things. And I get the sense that not many people in the communities that you've been talking to have the chops to dive into those code bases and actually use them directly.
You know what? Not many people had the chops at the time to go and evaluate the Ethereum virtual machine. Over time, that's what happened, and that's what's going to happen here. This is a part of an iterative process.
Agreed.
Right? Okay.
Agreed.
So then if we want to look at this carefully, right? The Ethereum virtual machine design was pulled out of someone's brain, to be polite about it, over a period of time, and a complete and it was a clean room implementation, and the thing happened in less than a year. Okay, what we're talking about is not starting, completely from scratch, but instead starting from a working VM that has been proven in industry and simply doing a re-implementation. Can we get it done in less time than what Ethereum did? Absolutely. Come on. If we're not that good, we're no good at all.
Greg,
So that's super important.
I feel like at this point you've definitely had quite a bit of time to engage this audience and Henry on a technical level. And as Henry pointed out, and I tend to agree, there's a lot of people in the community that are not capable, simply do not have the proper mental tools to evaluate your statements. During our last call, you mentioned that basically I, to some extent, failed due diligence by engaging you as a founder.
No, I didn't say that. No, please. What I said was that you had the opportunity to do due diligence. Everything.
Failed it.
Well, I don't know.
I agree with that.
I didn't say that you failed it.
I appreciate that feedback. There's a serious feedback because it is true. I'm not challenging that feedback in any way. I do believe, with all my heart, that feedback not only is true, it's very precise and is correct. I failed due diligence due to the simple fact that had I known the technical state of Special K at the time, and basically that technical roadmap for scenario that has been implemented due to Special K, that engagement would not have happened. So that due diligence, I truly believe that was my failure. In part, and this is, I do not intend to be unkind, but in part due to the fact that you have demonstrated, again, you are an impressive and eloquent person who, as even during this presentation, is capable of pulling up this share screen and showing things that I cannot challenge. I simply do not have the mental tools to challenge you from a technical standpoint. You're a mathematician, you're a programmer, and you're capable of presenting things that I cannot challenge. However, there are people, including Henry and perhaps others on the team, that are capable of challenging that. And the only thing that I can resort to, and I presume this is true for many other people who are invested within scenario, is basically resorting to the feedback of other people for their due diligence, simply because I have no other way of evaluating your value and proposal. And I feel like this is the due diligence that is happening now. And based on the feedback that is being received here, I think it would be just irresponsible to invest money from both business and technical standpoint. From a business standpoint, like we started the discussion, this is something that I'm capable of evaluating. It means that we're investing in a project with clear knowledge that there is not a fraction of the funds required to complete it. And from a technical standpoint, based on the feedback we have from developers, it's, while I can't say that it is going to be a failure, it's something that can be challenged. So
okay, so I hear your position, and I want to refine it. Right? So I believe that if our focus is here, which mine has been for several years now, right? So the focus is on the attention economy. I think we've all agreed, Ed was the one who really voiced it out loud, but we've all sort of taken it on board, that essentially posts become smart contracts. That's the core, that's the nub of the observation that makes this begin to be technically feasible. So that means you have to have a smart contracting system. That means you have to have a VM. So we have
Greg,
so we have some basic concerns about where that smart contracting system comes from. And that smart contracting system is either going to come from one of the existing proposals, like Ethereum, or a de novo proposal, or the kind of proposal that I've put forward that's built upon formal methods and code that has been tested in industry. So those are your three options. If you accept the position that was accepted by Dor, Ed, yourself, and many others over the course of evaluating how to do the attention economy, and a post effectively becomes a smart contract.
Greg, I am just going to introduce myself here to people who don't know me. So my name is Rogaya, and I am an economist. I have a PhD in economics. And Greg, you and I talked, I think for the first time about Post being a smart contract. We were sitting at Blends in Vancouver, corner of Broadway and Granville, when I was bringing up a bunch of mathematical equations showing that the flow of amps could have problems, especially when we are thinking about different kind of Sybil attacks. And that was that was where we discussed, how posts could potentially become contracts. But I also pointed out that that's just one way, and that's not the only way. And that actually could also have problems in itself. And if you remember when we were discussing it, you were like, oh, these are going to be the same entity. We both quickly realized it's actually not quite the case. And we really need to put in some very detailed thought and effort into actually making sure that that is true.
So Rogaria, thank you so much for that. And so every single one of the positions that we evaluated all came down to there being a smart contracting system for the attention economy. The discussion you even referred to used that as an implicit assumption. So thank you very much for supporting that position. So
no, I'm actually not supporting. Do not change my words, Greg. I do not support that.
Okay.
I mean, I have a PhD. You cannot just change my words. Sorry for pointing that out, Greg. The thing is, I do have my own opinion, and I do not necessarily agree. I think it would be interesting to have a smart contract, and it could actually help us to do different things, but not necessarily. You cannot just boil the whole model into just one simple thing. It just doesn't work that way.
I didn't boil the whole model into one simple thing, and thank you for reminding us that you have a PhD. The important point here is that all the discussions that you referred to had as the implicit backdrop that, in fact, there was a smart contract that was associated with the post. Now, moving on to the relevant technical discussions that affect the budgeting. So the relevant technical discussions that affect the budgeting here are that you're going to need a VM in order to make this work. In order to have that VM actually work, you have three options. Either you take one of the existing ones that are in the crypto space, none of which are production ready, and you're going to spend a lot of time developing them. So you are in for a multi-year process for which your funds are insufficient. That's option number one. So just using your own criteria, Andy, that's option number one. Option number two, you do a completely new invention of your own. So have you changed the position? No, you've actually taken a step backwards. Do you have the funds to do that? No, you don't. Option number three, you take an existing VM, you refresh it, and a VM that has been proven in industry, you refresh it, and then you add to it techniques from formal methods that get you there faster. Okay, well, is that going to get you closer to your goal faster and cheaper? Yes, it will. And that will also be the basis, and has already been the basis for talks with investors to get the next level of funding that will get you across the finish line. So again, if we just go through high-level discussion bullet points to address your point of view, the reality is you want to chop down the cost. I want to chop down the cost. I'm here with you, trying to serve you and the whole community to get to the finish line faster. The finish line is a working attention economy. This is what I have been focused on the entire time.
There has been no other proposal put forward for anything else than Rosette.
I don't think it would be responsible. Okay, so that's actually one of the key points and pain points, I feel, for the scenario team at this time, due to the fact that there was a proposal made public by Greg. I think that the team has been currently put in a position where they must provide a proposal which counters it within unreasonable and I think irresponsible time. Honestly,
so Andy, come on. Andy, I'm sorry to interrupt, but come on, right? This document, which has been around for many months, right, since April, and has been available for public comment, for comment by the teams, in which Door insisted not have the title rchain platform architecture, but scenario platform architecture, has in it the row VM. And what I did was to shorten the time to market for the row VM so that it isn't de novo, so that it isn't a clean room implementation of a brand new VM. What I said was we can get rid of the interim VM by using an existing VM whose design you can verify right now.
Greg, I'm sorry, but you're twisting the discussion into something that's completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter what future progress we promise to make if we were not able to deliver on what we promised.
Oh, no, absolutely. Here's
let me finish. And then after not succeeding in the delivery and after being pressed by me and the rest of your team members to focus completely on the alpha until it is released so that it functions as a decentralized social network, as we have promised, you are now demanding to effectively dismantle Scenario, leaving it with no funds and creating your new offshoot startup with no one from the Scenario team. This is what's happening here. This is the game that Greg is playing, and don't let him fool you with documents and technical hand-waving and all sorts of promises about how things may be 2 years or 10 years down the future and with $10 million more.
Okay, so I understand that Door has trust issues. I have trust issues with Door. But everyone here who has been everyone here who has been working with me knows that I have been delivering interim deliverables, and that at a certain point we made a judgment call, and the entire team, and this was part of Ed's move, and it's been a part. If I
no one on the team.
I let you finish, Door. I'm asking that you let me finish. Door, I let you finish. I'm asking that you let me finish.
Finish what? Finish saying everybody agrees with your delivery where no one is?
Yeah, that's Yaniv. Again, that's not a useful statement.
The people from the team are here. Just ask them.
Again.
I see no other proposal on the table.
Again, the point here is quite straightforward. We made a judgment call to shift to rchain. I put my reputation on the line by not finishing the technical debt in Special K. I could have done that, but I got assurances that the direction was rchain. And as evidence that I got assurances that the direction was rchain, this was changed from rchain platform architecture to Scenario platform architecture. And now, when there are trust issues, Door is attempting to cut at the point where I am most weakest because I didn't spend time on Special K and shifted to rchain. I could have done that, but what I did was to focus as much attention and effort as possible on getting the client part of this done, which is a huge problem in and of itself, getting the client part of this done and alleviating the technical debt by a different approach that will get us faster to market and cheaper. I am not, number one, I am not interested in leaving the Scenario community. I want Scenario to succeed. Look, I'm one of the largest equity holders. I'm one of the largest AMP holders. Why would I not be interested in the success of Scenario? Number two, I have put more time and attention into the attention economy than Door has by a factor of 2. I've been working on the thing since 2009. Okay? I have put more personal money into this than Door has by a huge factor. I am more committed to this process than just about anyone in the room. Okay? So I'm not leaving. I don't want to leave. I want everyone to succeed. I'm here.
Commitment is different from accountability. What we are saying, what we are questioning is not your commitment. What we are questioning is your accountability to your team.
And I have, and again, if the team tells me by published documents that is put out to the world and promised to investors that this is our focus, and I shift my focus in that way, and then the team tells me I'm not accountable, okay, now that is called betrayal.
No, Greg, again,
okay, so the critical point here is that we are back. We are
first delivering what we promised.
We are back.
That's all. We
are back at 9:58. 2 minutes away from when I have to leave this conversation.
As part of the community,
I'll cut to the chase. Okay, so
as part of the community, I have to say, Greg delivered what we needed in order to have projects ongoing that we're paying AMP bounties on that will make use of the alpha code. Okay, which is a great prototype. It's incremental prototyping. We throw away the prototype. Okay, the argument about
Jim, let's please close this.
So for the sake of moving the discussion forward as this meeting is coming to a close, is the following assessment correct? The proposal on the table is essentially rejected by DOR and the scenario team. Is that assessment correct?
I think Greg is part of the scenario team since he's a board member and owns a lot of shares.
That's correct.
The proposal is, let's say, not within the context of board, but within the context of.
There's been a proposal made by one person on the scenario team, and the rest of the scenario team rejects it.
So again, the team has been reconstituted to be new people, right? And I am even on the new person team.
Half of the people on the team are oldest employees. We have people.
I think it's.
We have Henry who's been working for 8 months. We have Gal who's been working.
So Henry just communicated with me.
MJ who's been with us from the start.
Henry just communicated with me that he came on in May. I thought it was April. So let's count: May, June, July, August, September. I think that's November. It's
you who left. Come on, Greg.
No, I haven't left. Didn't you just hear me?
But I mean, there's been a lot of back and forth about whether or not Greg,
I haven't left.
Right,
you create a new rchain meeting at the same time of the scenario meeting. You call up in the channel Slack to go and, I don't know, you just put some fire out there. You're practically not part of the team by the way you behave. I'm not talking about technical stuff.
This is the part of vigorous discussion.
Being a part of
the team doesn't mean
you're starting your own company and that there's nothing we can do.
No, we have always agreed.
You're starting a new entity, and
I think people need to be clear. There has been no question that rchain cooperative was always on the roadmap as a part of the rchain architecture. That was publicly stated multiple times.
And then you went and started.
First of all, the rchain co-op has not been started yet. It has not been formed. It's a part of the proposal. So starting the company is not in any way about me leaving. This is about fulfilling the commitments we made to investors. Okay, so these characterizations are not in good faith.
Okay, so is the following correct?
And you want to go do your own stuff.
No, I don't want to go do my own stuff. What I'm trying to do is get us to market as fast as possible. Make no mistake, I'm saying this to all investors. And I want everyone,
guys, we try to reach agreement.
Trying to get us to market.
We're on the table and we're communicating. You don't get what you want and you leave. That's pretty much it.
No, that's not the case.
No. So to summarize, so the proposal you've put on the table for your strategy of going to market, whatever way you would like to characterize it, seems to not be acceptable for the rest of the scenario team. Is that characterization correct?
I would like to see more technical detail.
Okay, so that's not the same as not acceptable. So already the characterization seems to be quite different.
Right. Regardless of how we choose to go on the technical side, there's a lot of voices saying that they feel they have been fooled in the ICO that just happened. So I want you to discuss what are the ways we can allow investors who think like myself, at least when they bought from the ICO on the website, on your website. I also bought on AMPS on Apollo. I want at least my amps, my BTC back from the ICO that I bought directly from your website, because I don't think you guys can work in a positive and productive way anymore, and I want out. And if I don't get my refund, and there's extensive evidence that the ICO, the way it happened, shouldn't have happened. If I don't get a refund, I promise you guys, I have enough people to start some legal action. And I think it's just fair that you realize you made a mistake, right? And this all shows the mistake we've made, right, as a scenario, as the team, with investors. And we need to allow investors who think they have been fooled to get their money back.
So
I need to discuss this right now.
I want to make it clear to you that at no point during the crowd sale, we thought that we would not be able to deliver a working decentralized social network or Special K as a DApp development platform. That was only discovered later on, just after
I understand.
No one at any point wanted to fool anyone. We were completely in alignment with the tech vision that included this intermediate product that would be
Greg said,
let me tell you what's going to happen next. We have a proposal on the table that is supported by the entire team that we discussed last time as well. It's based on milestones so that there's clear cutoffs in case there's nothing being delivered. It's on the table. Greg is able to see it. The community members have seen it as well. It may not be financed as much as he wants, but that's the reality of the situation. That this is the funding that we have, and that's what's going to allow Scenario to continue surviving and thriving, delivering on its promise. Now, right now, you have the entire core team of Scenario, besides Greg, willing and able to continue working on the Scenario vision and deliver on its promises.
I have to say that once again, Dor is saying factually incorrect things, and it's not okay for Dor to say factually incorrect things.
If for any reason the Scenario team,
as you can see,
let me speak. What
no. I think this is really important. You cannot make factually incorrect statements about my position.
What is my factually incorrect statement?
I am not interested in leaving. I am not interested in not working towards Scenario succeeding. I want.
That's your proposal. Your proposal and what you've communicated to me, to Ed, to Kara, and to the rest of the people of the team, on the team, is that you want to leave and form your new rchain cooperative. You've said it on many different venues and multiple.
I have said
so
that.
Actually,
let us look carefully at the proposal written in front.
I'm saying. I'm trying to make a statement to a concern.
Here we go. For anyone to see, here is the scope of the discussion. That's what's in the proposal. Number one bullet point: Greg's position in Scenario is not in scope. I am committed 100% to delivering on the Scenario vision, and I want all investors to know that.
Well, I'm sorry, you went back on your position. Everyone on the team and other community heard you want to start a new rchain cooperative.
Again, starting the rchain cooperative is not the same. Starting the rchain cooperative is consistent. Okay, again, this is disingenuous and a misrepresentation to investors, and I need to clarify. Starting the rchain cooperative was starting the rchain cooperative is completely consistent with the Scenario roadmap. It does not in any way represent or constitute Greg leaving Scenario. It does not in any way constitute me going and starting my own company. No, we all agreed that, and we had conversations with investors who said this was a very good move to protect the commons with a nonprofit foundation. That is, and for people to continue, Yaniv, yourself, and others, to continue to represent my position as running off to start my own company, when we all agreed in public, in videos, that a nonprofit foundation to protect the commons was part of the roadmap, is completely in bad faith. And I need investors to see this. I want it to be underscored. This is bad faith negotiation.
So there's an email in my inbox from about a month and a half ago, a bit less, with Greg saying to me and CCing Ed and Mukara, his mother, saying that he's going to start the rchain cooperative regardless of what any of us do, that we have no control over the process. He's just going to do it and leave us in the back mirror. If anyone wants to see this email, please either send me a message on Slack or mail me at rchain.coop. Now back to what
the reason that email was sent was because that position was consistent. Again, Dor, you cannot make these kinds of statements and not have responses. The reason that email was sent was because it was consistent with our position to investors that did not in any way commit us to anything other than positions that were consistent, that did not commit us to anything other than positions that were consistent with our investors. It is important that people understand the position I adopted is one that in no way shut off any other avenues or options, but remained consistent with the position we presented to investors. And this is the heart of the problem. I have attempted very much to remain consistent with everything we have said to investors. If you want to look at the pivots, Dor is now pivoting, right? So Dor is pivoting away from governance, pivoting away from promises made to investors. And this is what I have been trying to bring to light. So we have a new team. So it's not the same team that was promised to investors. We have a new position, not the same position as presented to investors, right? And we have backing away from governance. So these three things brought to light for
the community. No one is asking you to save, and no one. Honestly, like you could make whatever changes you thought that was reasonable inside with people's agreement. I think what's happening is that you wanted something, you didn't get it, and you just
no, it has nothing to do with that. We were all in agreement on this until I started actually executing on the vision. Right, everyone was in agreement until we started executing on the vision.
You got money to deliver something, you needed to deliver it, and then you wanted to go do something else.
No, that's such a blatant lie and mischaracterization of everything, and the videos and everything show that. Right, the budgeting proposal.
Is there anyone here on the call?
All we have to do is look at
a decentralized social network. Anyone on the call who thought
this here is what we promised this is what we promised investors. This is what we promised investors. It was on the screen of this document.
I want to hear if anyone here thought.
Okay, it's now 10. It is now 10:10, and I need to leave. And negotiation without me.
You should want me give another screenshot.
Negotiation without me is not in good faith. So we need to set up the time for the next meeting. We need to set up the time for next negotiation, or are negotiations done? Because if negotiations are done, then we need to move to the non-negotiated options.
Greg, you have a proposal backed by the entire scenario team on the table.
Discussion.
You have to understand that your
I need very clear. I need a clear statement, Andy. I need a very clear statement. Okay. Are we going to continue negotiation discussions, or are we concluded?
I cannot make that statement on behalf of the team.
Can we meet tomorrow at the same time?
Simply, I don't know.
There weren't any negotiations here. There was just a back and forth again.
Okay,
let's summarize what's currently on the table. Okay, let's just make a clear summary as to what's on the table. Greg currently has a proposal from the scenario team for staggered funding of the rchain project. Greg's proposal to the scenario team, the rest of the scenario team, has what appears to be rejected. That's the current state of things, and Greg is proposing the next iteration of negotiations to happen in
24 hours time.
Okay. Dor or whoever else would like to speak on behalf of the team, what say you?
Well, while Dor is contemplating, here's what I can say. If Dor's claims are correct, that this represents 70% of the funds, I'm happy to go down to 60-40. So if that is a cleaner or better, or even as low as 50-50, because I am quite sure that with 50-50, I can go back to investors. So with a 50-50, and a proper governance structure and scenario, I can go back to investors and get us to the finish line. So if anyone would like to see the project succeed and have the funding to get us to the finish line, that's what we can do.
Greg, honestly, if you manage to produce a commitment for the funding or for $7 or $8 million in funding, should we invest 2.1 million in it, I will push in whatever legal way possible for scenario to make that decision.
Will you send me a letter to that effect, an email, just clarifying that statement? Because right now, without commitment to a governance structure, I can't go to the investor. But if I have at least some indication that there is going to be a commitment to a proper governance structure with a proper board, then I can go back to the investor.
I can't really comment on the governance structure. I am commenting just on what it means from a financial and project completion point of view.
You know, I understand, but all I'm saying is, can you express this opinion as a major equity and stakeholder in the process? Can you simply express that you will join me in pushing to make this happen if there's a letter of intent? Because I'll go and get the letter of intent just on the strength of that, even without the damn governance thing. And then we'll solve the governance thing next.
Okay, so could you email me that specific request just so I properly have it captured so I can evaluate it? And
Look, I'm just going to state it I really need to get off, but I'm going to state it very clearly. I just want you to say in writing what you just said, that if I produce a letter of intent for the investment, that you will then work with me to push this through negotiation process.
Okay, very well.
Great. Fantastic. So that to me was a positive step forward.
I have a proposal that I think it's very, and I know you have to go, Greg, so I'll make it very short. I think if you've seen the last few days and this weekend and the communication over Slack channels and other media, I think it's not doing well to the community. Lots of biased information from Scenario's team side, from Greg's side, in some manner. I think it would be much professional for everybody if we could just make it a bit more peaceful and quiet in community channels and communicate like this and come up with as unified messaging to the community as we can, because otherwise it's just noise.
And how are you responding to, the guys that just mentioned they're going to sue regardless, like they want a refund?
Look, I don't think anybody's going to want a refund if I come back to the table with an 8-figure investment. I just don't, a 7 to 8 figure investment to get us across the finish line. Nobody is in any way going to want a refund. They're going to say, holy shit, and the ant market is going to go through the roof. Okay. So I'm sorry, but it's just not the refund option from my point of view is irresponsible because we pay fees twice and everyone loses. Okay.
Not for BTC Bitcoin that was transferred. There's no fee at all, and I'm glad to pay the mining fee for that.
So what you're saying is for those people who didn't go through Bank to the Future but went through the scenario sale page.
For them, they will have, like, if they want, they will have their money back minus the fees.
Yeah, but for those people who went through Bank to the Future, they'll be dinged. And if there's a second raise, they'll be dinged again.
They're saying it's better if they have the choice. If they want to refund, they have to know that you're not going to give more money than you got, right? So if you spent on fees, that's fine, right? I got amps from Polo, and I know I'm not going to get these back. I don't want them back, but the ones I gave you through Bitcoin, I transferred them to your account. You can't just undo that transaction. You can't do that if you want. If you realize what's happening here isn't really what was promised, and I feel fooled, and there's a lot of people who feel fooled, and I'm sure with all the evidence we've gathered already, we can show to regulators, to law enforcement actors that we have been fooled. I can assure you we can make this case through. So
right.
The best.
But we haven't failed yet. We're still in the negotiation.
We're still in the negotiation process.
Well, the feeling I have is there's no way this team can work together in a productive way. There's a lot of burnt ground. There's a lot has gone on here. Like, people have said they lied to each other, and they have evidence of that. Dor says Greg lied to him, and Greg says Dor lied to him. So it's really something that wasn't meant to be so, and that was known at the time of the ICO. There was some governance problem. There was promises that Dor made to Greg, and they weren't kept. And Greg says he has evidence.
Roger, that this is just another manipulation by Greg. There was no promise that was not kept.
Greg, can you?
Oh, that's completely false, and Ed will attest to that. And Dor consented in writing to the demands I was asking for.
Yes, I consented.
The most important of those demands was that we have a bloody board that doesn't have two people on it.
And I agree to that, and Ed will attest to it as well. He's seen the plan.
And it hasn't happened.
Well, I guess we're only here now in that mess because it hasn't happened.
That's correct.
No, it's not true. We are here because Greg is refusing.
Okay, once again.
Wants to split off to a new company.
No, I don't want to split off to a new company. Okay, please stop stating lies, Dor. It's not healthy. Okay, it hurts you. Lying hurts you. Okay.
But this is exactly what's happening. You did not believe what we promised, and now you want funds.
Right, so you're only two in the board. You're only two in the board. Go on, Dor, please. Have you finished?
I've said what I had to say. He did not deliver. Is there anyone here on the call who did not expect Scenario to deliver a working decentralized social network, or to already have a platform for the development of decentralized applications? Okay. This is what we've been talking about.
No. And again, there have been interim deliverables. Again, this is disingenuous. There have been interim deliverables, and we all made an agreement to shift to rchain. Ed left the project in order to pressure to shift to rchain so that we pay off the technical debt.
He put the pressure so that he finally put focus on the bits and deliver something.
No, that is not the case. I have been focusing on the bits. I focused on the client bits first while we were assessing the best way to address the technical debt on the back end.
It's clear that we don't trust each other.
I think this is no longer a productive conversation.
You're misrepresenting. But the point is that the entire team,
I think it is absolutely important.
Following what's happening,
absolutely
takes one position, and you're taking another position. Everyone who has been following understands and agrees with what I'm saying.
This is
very clear cut.
Actually, no, that isn't the case. Henry just stated that wasn't the case.
Henry
wants more data on the proposal that's in front of you.
Let me just interrupt here. So, Dor.
In good faith, I would like to see negotiations continue. I would like to see less confrontation. I would like to see more productive conversation. I'd like to see more productive conversation about technical details. I would like to back away from the kind of brinksmanship that I've seen, and I would like for all of us to reconvene. I have heard a lot of positive from both sides in this, and it's important to me that despite the history that we have, that we all in good faith try to work together to come to a better solution tomorrow for everybody involved.
Bloody hell, I nominate Henry for CEO.
I am not interested. I decline the nomination, but I would like everybody here to try to do their best to let's work beyond the conflict and the confrontation that we've had. I know that this is a very difficult circumstance we're in right now. For me, it's one of the hardest I've been in, professionally to this point in my career. And so I hope in good faith that we can all remain committed to this process. And I've heard positive things in both directions today. And I really would like to hear the continuation of that. To the extent that the rest of the conversation will go exactly as the last 5 minutes have gone, I think that probably it's time to sort of back off a little bit. But I really do think we need to continue to all try to work together here.
But all right, so Henry, if we're all in scope for this larger vision of issuing in a decentralized economy, attention economy and stuff, that scope goes beyond the individuals of Greg and
that's
Dor.
part of, and that's
so it's totally okay for that split to happen. I'm not saying it's necessarily the best thing, but
it's certainly on the table, Patrick. I don't disagree with you at all.
We don't have
certainly,
to.
It's certainly on the table, but it's part of a larger constellation of issues that needs to have a more concerted discussion and less finger pointing on both sides. And it's my hope that as we move forward with this process, we can continue in that spirit. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Final statements on that. So issuing with community governance and leadership are inherently kind of finger pointing the concerns that arise from Greg, whereas every concern that has been sent to Greg, he's defended in some sort of way or has been accountable in that manner. So it's like this crossroads that it really kind of only seems like a natural display.
Oh, it just sounds to me, Patrick, though, like you've already arrived at the idea that this is just rotten to the core and the split needs to happen. And I don't even hear that from Greg at this point. So if you feel like
I hear that from
the sort of Greg team in that sense.
No. I'm speaking on behalf of people that are saying that they're going to sue.
Yeah, it's like I'm not in a position to address those kind of claims. I'm sorry, it's just not who. I mean, I'm a developer here.
That's totally fair. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm not here to talk to you about that, but recognizing the fact that development is at the core of this project, my hope is that discussions forward can take a more considered approach in that regard, and that's what we've needed all along. And I recognize that it's perhaps a failing of the development team too for not having stepped into these conversations earlier. But I've been heads down in the code base trying to get this thing happening. So I'm sorry to the extent that I haven't been here for some of those discussions. But we're strapped in 20 different directions for time. So my hope is that now that we're here, we can take more time to discuss these things in a productive fashion.
Right. So I think I want to respond to some of the things in the chat. And I really, guys, I have other commitments. I have a family and I have other commitments here. So I absolutely propose that we resume at 10:30 PST AM tomorrow on a neutral channel that can be recorded and managed by the community. And so but apart from that, I want to point out that I have been willing to give here, and I have been willing to give all along. Right?
We're recording this. Don't worry. We're recording.
You're in charge of all the edits and everything else, and that's why I have made sure that there are other parties on the call who are also recording it. So that
exactly.
So that there will be multiple versions. If it turns out there are multiple versions, it'll be clear to the community.
Right.
So what I propose is that there is a neutral place, a neutral Zoom room, where we meet again in 24 hours and continue the discussions. I want to point out to everyone that I have been willing to give. The first proposal, the counter proposal that I put on the table was largely for education purposes, so that people could see that the proposal that Dora put forward behind closed doors and without oversight from the community was completely irresponsible in terms of budgeting. Now, the next proposal that I have had is clearly lean, but we can pare it down to 50-50, and I can still go get additional investment to go across the finish line. And that has been my plan. And that's been my plan, a stated plan that Dor knows about since August. And for him to represent anything else
before the IPO.
That's correct. And and for him to represent any other position is false, and there have been eyewitnesses to this fact.
I have a suggestion. I would suggest that Dor and Greg agree to add 1 to 3 additional board members in the next 24 hours. And I nominate Henry, Andy, and myself as candidates for those 1 to 3 additional candidates.
Ed, I love your idea. I just wish it.
I second that.
I wish it had come in August. I
did propose myself as a 3rd board member, but I think ultimately this is going to be a board decision. The community conversations are great, but at the end of the day, it has to be ratified. And unless Dor and you are in perfect alignment, it's not going to get ratified.
The surest way to get sued is to change our plans now, after we got the money.
I tend to agree with that, Jim. Right, and that's why I've been documenting the whole process. So, but all right, so do we agree to meet, and we will have the community provide a neutral Zoom room for the next process, so that we don't have this last minute change of venue that happened like today and costing us another 8 minutes.
We can have the same room be used for tomorrow's meeting at 10.
I would like there to be I would like there to be a neutral Zoom room that is not managed and controlled by people who are claiming now to be the scenario team.
I run a community room, so and I'm neutral.
Nobody has been kicked out of this room so far.
So we can have it in my room tomorrow.
Okay, Jim, I'm happy with that. So unless I hear other dissent, I believe that that's the place for the discussions to resume. And by the way, I think all of this conversation is super healthy. I want there to be lots and lots of communication from the community and with the community. I want people to be apprised. I want people to be paying as close attention as possible to how their money is spent and where it's spent.
I think, I mean, I'm okay with the idea of a neutral room. I don't think that Jim's room is going to be neutral in this case. And I know that there's obviously a lot of, everyone's going to have some kind of bias, but to the extent that we can get somebody together would not. That said, I think in good faith, no one here is about to sort of, edit this or sort of, control this in that sense too.
Ed, would everyone accept Ed if he sets up a Zoom room for us to meet in?
I would be happy to accept Ed as the host of a Zoom room.
Okay, great. I'm happy to accept that.
I can't do that just for personal scheduling reasons. I can't do that.
Shoot.
It is the time.
What would be a time that works for you, Ed?
What do you consider to be not neutral in this room?
So Ed, what would be a time that works for you?
Sorry for the delay. Yeah, I can't really commit in the next 24 hours. I'm working through a visa issue and semi-stranded in Canada at the moment with Patrick. So
got it. Okay, understood. No worries. Not a problem. I mean, it doesn't matter what country you're in. You can do Zoom from anywhere, but
I can't predict my time.
You can't predict your time. Got it. Okay. Let's see. What about Patrick? Or
I don't think there's any such thing as an impartial member of anyone in this.
I have an idea. I will ask Jake from Coin Fund if they would be willing to provide a room.
What's the problem with this room's neutrality? It's just a very simple solution that's available.
Right. What do you need? Like, no one was kicked out of this conversation. You can record it as you like. What's the problem?
So what I would like to have is a neutral room that is not owned, where the room is not owned and controlled by the scenario team or the people claiming to be the scenario team.
I think that this room is indicative of the problem. And I think it's a petty point. I think we should just go to Dor's room.
Agreed.
Thank you, Jim.
Fine. Then if there's based upon that comment, then I will be happy to resume in this room at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow.
I think you said 10 earlier. Do you want 10:30?
10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow, 24 hours from now.
That's why a good admin works, is because they can also mute people that are particularly annoying.
Okay.
All right. So 10:30 a.m. PST here.
I think we're done. Yay.
Is that you, MJ? Is somebody vacuuming over there?
Are we still recording?
It appears that we are, yeah.
The light is on.
Someone want to do a performance?
Did everybody everybody leave? Yeah, I guess I can't ask any more questions.